Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for essentially a transfer special, but with a little twist of some tactical specialties by EuroExpert himself. Alex, thank you for joining me once again. It's been a hot minute. We were just talking before we went live. The Chelsea fan base kind of turned against you a little while back. So you were like, no, I'm not having it. Took a step back, but now you're back, and I'm glad to have you back on. You might or might not be wearing a very well-fitting kit today, the Lyon kit. We'll talk about that a little later on. Of course, we will talk about Caicedo. We will talk about Chelsea's midfield. We will assume as if Lavia is here already, as much as it's not been announced. It's essentially done. And we will also talk about all the other bits and bobs of Chelsea news that, unfortunately, we need to discuss. I'm not going to involve Alex in that too much, but if he has something to say, I'm sure he will say it. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, welcome. Welcome back. I hope you're all well. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Of course, check out Alex's channel. It's actually linked in the title and in the description below. Check out all his links. That would be massively appreciated. You know what, Alex? I'll start with you before we get into any specific Chelsea news. But how have you viewed Chelsea's transfer window so far? As a kind of outsider, but as a maybe even a little bit against Chelsea now, after a few Chelsea fans have turned against you. I don't know how that's impacted your views towards the club. But how have you viewed that? Obviously, Caicedo, huge deal. Lavia, another huge deal. Then it's the question, did we need Lavia as well? But all the other things going on as well. Buying Sanchez, then letting Kepa go, now buying a backup to Sanchez. You know, lots of things going on. You know, we thought the crazy windows was last summer in January. But no, we're having another one.
Yeah, let's tackle this bullet point by bullet point. First of all, happy to be back on. I've missed you. I've missed being on this channel. It's one of my favourites to be on. The vibe's always good. Second of all, yes, I am wearing a timely shirt, and that was on purpose for once. It wasn't just a random shirt. Thirdly, Chelsea fans, you know, we've had our disagreements, but I think you guys just had a horrible year last year. So I'm willing to, you know, let's let bygones be bygones, everyone. Yes, it's all healthy now. I'll be nice to you. Fourth, your transfers are terrible. No, I'm joking. Fourth, your transfers are interesting. Yes, I'd say that, you know, from at work, being every day, Chelsea, first of all, been a great topic of video. So thank you very much to your football club. But accepting that you've worked out financially, like if you put the mind-boggling numbers aside, which, you know, I'm still trying to get my head around, it's hard not to say it's just been one of the best windows I can remember. There's a few signings in there where I'm thinking it's just very business-like. It is not great for the player, but overall,
Who is that? Who are those?
I would say Ugochukwu. I cannot see him making it at Chelsea after signing Romeo Lavia.
I agree.
And especially with Caicedo in there as well. I know there's slightly different profiles, but it's just like, you know, the Chelsea argument, I get it. Like Chelsea fans saying, you know, if he's good enough, he'll play, but he has to go on loan to Strasbourg, he has to prove himself. Fair enough, I don't dispute that. But if I'm Lesley Ugochukwu, I'm saying, well, I signed for Chelsea because I want to play for Chelsea, and now I've got another player in my way who's as young as I am, which will always be in competition with me.
You know the weirdest thing about this? That apparently, and obviously who knows how true that always is, but apparently Ugochukwu was even one of the players talking to Lavia, convincing him to come here in the last few days before the transfer became, like, real, essentially. That's even more weird to me. Like, what? I don't understand. I don't understand what we sold Ugochukwu, what kind of dream we sold him. Because before Lavia, I guess there was some sort of logic to it. Even if you buy Adams, if say Adams would have been like that stopgap option for like 2-3 years as this like very defensive, a bit of a leader, even though he's still fairly young. Okay, then you get Ugochukwu in 2 years' time or whatever when he's 2021, he may be ready to be involved. But like you said, him and Lavia at the same age, somewhat of a similar profile. How are you ever going to have both? Especially when in front of them you have Caicedo and Enzo and you have Santos as well. I don't get it either. But I'm glad to hear that you think for the most part, Chelsea's transfers have been very, very good. I will get into those bits of Chelsea news that we need to cover beforehand so then we can fully focus on all transfer talk and tactics talk and whatever else. And as much as we don't have all the people here yet, and I'm sure more will join, I need to start with it because honestly, we had 2 good days. And I'm back to being miserable. Like, why does this need to keep happening? Honestly, it's for me, it's just gut-wrenching. Like, we just made a captain. He played 76 minutes. We thought he got injured in the game. Turns out he didn't actually get injured in the game. He was injured in training. What? Why? Why does this keep happening?
I don't know why you're so surprised.
You're right.
I have a friend who put him in FPL, and he sent me a picture of it today, and he's a really good FPL player. And that's the dumbest decision you've made in years. Like, this guy, he doesn't play football anymore.
Yeah, it's true. It literally is true. I put him in my FPL as well, and I was thinking today, am I a moron? Like, I literally am. Like, why? It's just like it's 76 minutes of football, and he now may or may not be out for months. Now, it was Sam, the guy that has always the early team news last season. So I'm not sure how true that is, how much he can know about this, because apparently he was only set to have the scan today. And I think he said that before he would have had a scan. So I don't know if he had any inkling or if he was just, I don't know why he was saying that. But just imagine it's another few months out. Like, obviously, I'm no doctor. I also don't know the exact details of Reece James's injuries, the hamstring injuries that he's had. But so many fans, including myself initially, were saying, well, surely there is hamstring injuries. N'Golo Kante had a hamstring injury last season. Now, sure, it didn't fix everything. He got injured again in the end, and now he's in Saudi Arabia, so it didn't really help anyone. But still, he had that surgery, and they thought it would help his hamstring to remain healthy after that. That option was not taken with Reece James. We had a summer where we could have done it just now, but we decided not to do that. Like I say, I'm no doctor. I don't know if a hamstring surgery would have been useful in his case. I don't even know if maybe right now he has the other hamstring injured to what he usually injures. I don't know. But what I do know is that we have, like Texas Blue said, a captain that can't stay on the pitch, that for the last year hasn't played more than, 4 or 5 games without getting injured. And the problem is every time he does play, we're like, oh my God, he's amazing. But then he's injured again for like 2-3 months, God knows however long. And it's just so frustrating. I mean, there isn't really much I can bring you into here, but I'm sure even as a non-Chelsea fan, I think everybody is in agreement that Reece James is a great player. It's always frustrating to see great players not play and, almost have their careers hampered by injuries. But how do you view Reece James? Like, because we obviously love him now. He's our captain. He's our this great academy product and everything. But Mount's now gone, so he's like the main academy product for us. But he can't even stay fit. Like, do you look at Chelsea and you're like, your medical team must be awful? Or is it more looking at Reece James when you think about that?
I look at Reece James and I think on his day, he's one of the best football backs in the world. But I think if he wasn't a Chelsea player and we were talking about him right now, I think you'd be a lot harsher. I think you're saying like, this could hamper his career. I think his career is and has been hampered at this point. True. Like these injuries keep stacking up. And from like, I think you're still looking at it from the lens of Reece James. He's going to be back. Is he going to be back to like full fitness? Because how many players have we seen go for injury spells like this and just never recover? I'd be like, not to be a downer, but I'm getting quite seriously worried about this. Like the frequency he's picking up injuries and out of nowhere as well. It's not just like bad luck. He's just been 2-footed 3 games in a row. It just seems to keep happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that knee injury he got away at Milan last season, that was the one freak one, but all the others are muscle injuries. So, yeah, I still firmly believe that some of it last season was rushing him back because we needed him so badly, and that definitely didn't help. I don't think that happened now. And obviously, like I say, we don't know yet how bad the injury is or will be. So maybe he'll be back in 3 weeks, which again, then is not so bad, I guess. But it's still not ideal because how can this muscle ever properly recover if every couple of months or every 3-4 months it picks up another injury? It's super frustrating. But yeah, but what can we say? Let's hope we get somewhat good news, I guess, that it's not too serious. But one thing I can say is, bloody thankfully, we signed a serious backup. And you are also, in that case, wearing a very fitting kit, exactly, with Malo Gusto, of course. I'm sure we spoke about Malo Gusto when you were last on, I think in January. But do you think Malo Gusto is a capable backup to Reece James?
I'd say so. I'd say definitely in an attacking sense. I remember tweeting this when he was at Lyon, that he was like 18 years old, but he was already quite clearly like one of the better attacking fullbacks in Liga. Like, great up, a really good crosser and good on the overlap and a nice passer as well. But where he always got criticised at Lyon, well, not criticised, it's just this is the point he needs to improve his defensively. That is the point I'd worry about Chelsea. Like when he moved there, I was saying that I don't think he's ready to step in as a first team player. Now you've not really got a choice. If it was up to me, I'd play him in a wing-back system. So maybe that's what Pochettino has to persevere with. But I don't know how long you'd go with that. Maybe you will, because Levi Colwill's in the team. But I think with Chelsea, it's hard to describe because your shape kind of got all thrown out of the midst with Nkunku's injury.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's a side note. There's a lot of fans online going at you at Chelsea for your squad at the weekend. And Chelsea fans are in my corner at this point. So that Nkunku injury, I think, has to derail all expectations a bit to this season because he's clearly so key and he was doing so good. So to the point we don't even know which system Poch will play now.
No, mate, I'm not sure if you follow this to this extent, but there was a lot of debate after the Liverpool game. What formation did we play? Was it 3-5-2? Was it 4-2-3-1? Pochettino in the post-match press conference then explained, well, we essentially on the ball played a five back, 2 wing backs essentially, Chilwell and Reece James in a way. But off the ball, we played a 4-2-3-1. Levi Colwill a left back, and Ben Chilwell was essentially a left mid or a left winger. And I'm like, you are mental. Like, if this is only against Liverpool and you're doing this because Trent comes from right back to midfield and you wanted Chile to follow him, then fair enough. But I still don't understand why you wouldn't instead try to exploit that space that Trent leaves, but just put Mudryk there and running past everyone. I still don't get it. But hey, it's the third Chelsea manager in a row now that keeps benching Mudryk for some reason. I am beyond words. But anyway, enough about that one. We'll talk more about Malo Gusto as we get on with it. I do need to get through a couple of these news, I guess, because the other day we were doing a stream. Yeah, Lavia is joining, but also Michael Olise is joining. Well, he's not. He is now staying at Palace all of a sudden because Crystal Palace informed the club's lawyers of their intention to consider going to a tribunal with Chelsea over the approach for Olise. That's how the story changed. Palace are very strong on that, and Chelsea left the conversations. Olise accepted a new deal with Palace, and he signed a new 4-year deal with them. Now, Fabrizio, in a TikTok that I saw of him, still said that Chelsea believed that they acted right and didn't do anything wrong. But I don't believe that even for a single second, because if they believed that, they wouldn't have moved. They wouldn't have dropped the deal now, would they? It's always a bit of a question mark. I don't know how you see that one, Alex, but obviously the rules say you're not allowed to approach a player without the go-ahead of the club if they have more than 6 months remaining on their contract. But if we're also being honest, no club gives 2 damns about this nowadays. Like, every single club that I know of, whether it's Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, none of them care. And they talk to the player first because it also makes sense. You want to know first, does the player even want to come here before you ever talk to the club first, right?
Yeah.
But still, the fact that Palace were apparently threatening to go to a tribunal, tells me we did something wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, obviously, it's hard to know. I mean, you've got to look at Crystal Palace as well. They've lost Wilfried Zaha, right? They're in danger of losing Czech Decore, it seems, if you believe the rumours. Like, if they'd lost Olise, their only signing this summer has been Jefferson Lerma. It's like, maybe this is more a sign of, Palace are just going, or just my opinion, maybe the sign that Palace were just going all stops not to lose Michael Olise. Because otherwise their squad's in a very weak place. I also like the wording of Fabrizio Romano's tweet. I'm sure there's nothing in it at all, but it's the way it says Olise accepts new deal. Like, I guess I'll accept it then. It's very funny to me.
It didn't seem very buzzing about it. I'm also not sure what he's wearing there. I don't know what this is about, but
I think he's going fishing.
Fishing, yeah. Or the Australian outback. I don't know what he's doing, but something crazy, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know if it has anything to do with, is the reason because they threatened this? Is that why we didn't give them Lewis Hall on loan? Or is because we didn't give them Lewis Hall on loan why they threatened this? I don't know. I have honestly no idea at this point. Just super quickly, because we're not getting him anyway. Do you think Olise would have been a good target for Chelsea, a good signer for Chelsea if it did happen? Yeah,
I think he would have actually. I think you've only got one natural right winger in Noni Madueke, not counting Ziyech. I think Olise provides a bit of a different profile to him. I think this would be really sensible business from Chelsea. From their perspective, bit of a shame it's not come through.
Exactly. That's why I find it a shame. And I get that people are saying, he's not the best player in the world, so, we're not missing out on that much. But that's, in my opinion, that's not the point. The point to me is we picked him as a player we want. We were this close to signing him, and then something happened and we had to pull out. That's the part I have an issue with. It's not necessarily that there is no player as good as Olise or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to say. But this can't keep happening to us. Yeah, when the owners turn up, Iqbali and Boehly turn up, yeah, they can sign Enzo and Mudryk and Caicedo. But seemingly, when they're not involved, we can't get anyone that anyone's ever heard of. Do you know what I mean? Like, did I know of Badiashile before we signed him? No. Did I know of Disasi before we signed him? No, I had heard their names, but really know about them? No, I'll be perfectly honest. Do you know what I mean? The same goes for half the players we signed, right? So I'm like, okay, brilliant. You signed those. Amazing. We're still Chelsea Football Club. But whenever we try to sign someone who's not that straightforward, it falls apart. It just really annoys me, honestly. Adash says they also signed Mateus Franca. Did that ever get officially done? I don't know.
Yeah, it did, to be fair. Yeah.
Fair play. But anyway, enough about Olise. Let's quickly mention Lewis Hall. I'm not sure what you think about this, but this is even continued on from this. It seems like it's about to happen, essentially. Here, obviously, David Ornstein talks about a permanent play, a permanent move, but now there's talk about a loan, but then an obligation to buy for a fee of between 28 and 35 million pounds. And Chelsea fans have kind of lost the plot a little bit about this. I'm not sure if you've gathered that at all, Alex.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Chelsea fans are not happy. And I'm not particularly happy. Not because I'm like, okay, Lewis Hall is the second coming since sliced bread. Do you know what I mean? But because I don't understand, like, what are we doing? Are we balancing the books? If you balance the books, then this is stupid planning, because as we spoke about earlier, could have just not bought Ugochukwu. Instead of selling Lewis Hall for 28 million. I know with amortization, Ugochukwu, the 23 million split over the 7-year contract is basically nothing anyway. I'm aware. But in the grand scheme of things, if we need to balance books, then don't buy Lavia. Like, yes, Lavia is amazing, and we'll talk about him soon, but he wasn't a proper necessity after having got Caicedo already, at least in my opinion. We'll talk to Alex about that soon. I understand that Lewis Hall or his parents are Geordies, and he's a childhood Newcastle fan and stuff. So I get that, and I don't even have the biggest problem with him necessarily going after Poch didn't use him much in preseason anyway. But I don't understand why we wouldn't loan him out first, because he's 18 and he's been so good for us every time he played, other than once. If you give him a loan and he plays regularly, he will double his value. So if it's about balancing the books, if we're now selling him for around 30 million, we could probably get 50, maybe 60 next year. Like Lavia is 19 and we're signing him for nearly 60 million pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I personally don't get it. But I'm not sure how much you've been able to see of Lewis Hall, because he's only played sporadically and those may not have been games that you watched. But when he did play for us, almost always he was our best player. And for that to happen, I know we had an awful season and everyone was bad, but for that to happen to a 18-year-old, you can't be bad. Like, when you're the best player at Chelsea at 18, every time you play it, pretty much, you've got to be pretty good. So, yeah. And also, I'm sure you're aware of this. Last week, he apparently signed a 6+1 year contract at Chelsea, and now we're selling him. I just don't understand any of this. Like, it's baffling. He even had a pre-agreement for a loan to Palace. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. Olise is not coming. He's not going to Palace. I have no idea what's happening. Honestly, baffled. But what's your perspective on this at all?
I mean, I don't know about that last bit. Like, that's brand new information to me. So that would be very interesting. But I think there's two things. I mean, first of all, I've surprisingly prepared. I have watched Lewis Hall, and I would agree he's tended to be one of our best players on the pitch. He's such a, he doesn't need to be physically amazing. He's just a really tidy player. Like, just fits in really well, as if he's not, an 18-year-old. But and there's two things to point out here. First of all, he does balance the books, but quite uniquely as an academy product. That 35 million will count as pure profit. And even without Ugochukwu, I think from what I understand it, at least, someone in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, with Chelsea amortizing, right? Yes, Ugochukwu would only be 30 million over 8 years, but the amount of players they signed this and last summer, is getting into the point now where it's going to be 50, 60 mil every year, amortized. All of these fees.
We're probably into the 150s, 200 million. You know what I mean?
So it's you'll be able to get by financially in a sense, but also from what it feels like, at least, I don't think you can't do this every summer is the main point. So it's important to balance the books. And Hall, because he's a Academy graduate, counts as pure profit. And the other reason is can
I just jump in with that 1 second? That is fair, very fair. And maybe because not only Reece James got injured, also Chalobah picked up another injury. He already got injured in pre-season. Then he was seemingly nearly back. And now he also got injured again. So we can't even sell him now. Maybe he actually got injured 2 days ago. And then once that happened, Chelsea decided to sell Hall. Because after signing Disasi, there's no real need in the squad for Chalobah. So I'm very sure that the plan was to sell Chalobah. who obviously also being academy product is also pure profit. So maybe that's what happened. That would actually make sense now that I think about it a little bit, because we wanted to sell Gallagher, apparently. We wanted to sell Chalobah, apparently. We were willing to sell Martin, apparently. And we were not willing to sell Lewis Hall. Now, guess who's being sold? Lewis Hall. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Ian Martin is great, and I understand the left-back issue that we have as well. Having Ben Chilwell, he's now vice-captain. Reece James is never fit, so Ben Chilwell is essentially captain. Then you have Cucurella, who you can't get rid of because you signed him for 60 million. He's been awful. And then you have Ian Martin, who was in the championship team for the season as a left-back, and Pochettino's used him in the front three anyway, albeit three behind the striker. So, yeah, but also apparently Lewis Hall wants to play midfield, but he won't play midfield at Newcastle anyway. I don't really know. It's all a bit baffling to me, and it's just a bit annoying. Like, I really liked him. I thought it was really good. He's 18. Like, I'm sure we have plenty of other academy players that we could have sold that didn't have to. Like, how about we give Hall time first, whether he's an actual absolute superstar and we need to have him in the squad, or whether he's one of those that's super talented at 18 but then fizzles out a little bit, because both exist. But it's a bit early to know, which one is it going to be? But yeah. There you go. Not really much more to add to that. I touched on Chalobah's injury already. He's out for another month, so that makes it very unlikely he will be sold now. So that is obviously difficult. We've talked about Olise, and I guess the other bits are mostly Chelsea transfer targets. I will just start with that, and then we'll get into the Al Caicedo chat. Olise is off. We were also interested in Ryan Cherky for a little while, but those kind of rumors went cold about a month ago. There was also links to what's his face? Kudus, who now is likely or looks like he may be going to West Ham after initially he was supposed to go to Brighton, but then he wanted a release clause and Brighton didn't want to give him one. So I don't know what's happening with that. And now we might apparently be interested in a guy called Bradley Barcola playing for Lyon. I'm not even sure how old he is, but Alex, you told me before we went live, you actually know a bit about him. So would he be a good signing, and would he be a good alternative option to Olise, or is it quite a step down from Olise?
Hard to say. I think in current levels, a step down. You mentioned earlier that Olise, he's not what you weren't trying to say. Olise is one of the best Premier League players. I disagree. I think Olise, if you look into the nitty gritty numbers, his per 90 stats, he really is one of the most creative players in the Premier League. Bradley Barcola, Lyon Academy graduate, and that is only broke through last season. In fact,
he is French, right? Even though called Bradley Barcola.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he is French. He only got into the Lyon side on Laurent Blanc in January. Just after January. In fact, in January he was seeking a loan move away to the Swiss league. So really, to go from seeking a loan move away to now getting into Chelsea is quite a come up, and it's why I have encouraged fans online to calm down a little bit. I think the fact he's a really good, promising right winger has inflated his hype a little bit throughout the summer. I think it's always worth saying, if a player hasn't played and the hype just keeps growing about him, then it's getting a little out of control. But he definitely is someone to get excited about. Lyon in the second half of last season did become pretty good under Blanc. He played in a 4-2-3-1, mainly on the right wing, but sometimes up front as well, actually. So he can, because he is about 6 foot tall, he's quite physical. He's not a dainty winger. He's completed 2.5 dribbles per 90 last season in League One, which is pretty solid too. Yeah,
Do you want to hear a random stat?
Go on.
Alex Goldberg tweeted earlier, he was the fastest 20-year-old in Europe. I'm like, brilliant. Who cares? But apparently he's the fastest 20-year-old in Europe. So if you care about that, amazing. Sorry.
I mean,
I was so baffled by that stat. I was like, why do I care? What do you mean across 20-year-olds? If you said under 25, fair enough. But he's not. We have that guy as well with Mudryk. I'm not sure if he's faster than Mbappe, but along those lines anyway.
We'll let Alex carve out his own career as a data analyst in the background. But the Barcola, it's interesting. His pace doesn't tend to come to mind. I think he is quick, but I quite like him for his dribbling, and as much as he's played up front as well, he's quite good at getting to the back post and also crossing. There's a couple of good goals this season Leon has scored where he's got down the right and cut it back, driven along the box. So
him and Lacazette seem to link up quite well from the few clips I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing in the front line with Cherky as well, it's very hard to stand out. So the fact Barcola's had this quick rise, really promising. But 35 million euros, probably a fair fee. But if he arrives,
Apparently, they want 50 million euros, about 42 million pounds. Apparently,
who knows? In this market, that's probably fair. You guys have ruined transfer fees.
Yeah, it literally are thought, to be fair. I mean, if you had to pick between Barcola and Cherki, who would you pick between those two?
Oh, Cherki every single day. Cherki's a generational talent that could win a Ballon d'Or.
Well, see, then what are we doing? Apparently, Cherki's discipline isn't the best, and that might not be the best press on the pitch. But I'm like, if he comes to Chelsea, surely just tell him you need to press, otherwise you're not playing, and then he will do it.
Personally, I think those rumors kind of came out of weird corners. That's never really been a big topic. Never been a big topic in France. So I'd have bet that money about Cherki. I think the reason they haven't got in for Cherki is because Lyon are desperate to keep him, even though his contract's up in a couple of years. And also, I think if they charged 100 million euros to Cherki, that would actually genuinely be understandable. Like his talent is insane. Whereas Barcola really is a breakthrough talent. Like I couldn't tell you if he did hit, like if he would hit it in the Premier League. It's a small sample size so far, so that's why Chelsea probably in for Barcola.
I hear that, although it doesn't if he's seen as a step-in player until Nkunku is back, that doesn't exactly seem like he's ready for that. From what you've just said, I'll be honest. Obviously, there is Chukwuemeka, but he's, I don't think he's been that amazing in preseason. I don't think he was that amazing against Liverpool. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I'd say Barcola's just he's a nice profile to have on the right wing to rotate Madueke. They're more similar than Olise and Madueke, but I wouldn't see him as a stopgap to Nkunku. I think he could play centrally, but
it would be a backup to Nkunku more, Madueke more so than anything else.
I think backups are rotation.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I guess we do need that because we kind of have two official left wingers in the squad in Sterling and Mudryk, and only one right winger in Madueke. But obviously, Sterling is being used on the right and Chilwell is being used on the left. So, do we really need that? I don't know. But another one that we've been linked with as a potential other option to Michael Olise for this position has apparently been Brennan Johnson. Thoughts? I always thought if there was one good player at Forest, it's Gibbs White and not Brennan Johnson. But do you know any more than I do?
I can't claim to know much more, honestly, but I don't know. I don't think the numbers are particularly as promising. And he made a really bad finish at the weekend against Arsenal. Had an opportunity to equalise, threw on goal and blew his shot over. Maybe this is just a top I'm wearing, but I'd be going for Barcola over Brennan Johnson, particularly as Brennan Johnson. I'm not sure if Forest have any FFP issues. If not, they're going to be charging, I'd say, quite a bit for Brennan Johnson, like 50, 60 mil, because it's Chelsea. And
this is why it annoys me so much that the Olise thing fell apart, because he had a release clause of 35 million. It would have been a steal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's mess on it, I'd say.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'm not particularly excited, but hey, let's just see what happens. You never know with Chelsea. Apparently, we might also like Phil Foden, but I don't know, £1 million. Still not getting it, am I? I mean, all right then. But yeah, let's focus on some positives, because there are some positives at Chelsea this season, thankfully, because we have finally, after many, many years, revolutionized our midfield. And this is now our midfield. Obviously Enzo Fernandez. We have added Moises Caicedo for a British record fee of £150 million, 100 plus 15, but still 115 million in total. And Romeo Lavia for a fee of 53 plus £5 million. That will be announced any day now, really. What do you make of that midfield revolution to go from Jorginho, Kovacic, Kante to Enzo Fernandez, Lavia, and Caicedo?
Well, first of all, I'd say you're not a Chelsea fan for not arranging it in LFC formation. I think that's poor.
I didn't do this myself. I found out to him.
That is poor from you. But yeah, no, it's an outrageous midfield revolution. Lavia, I mean, to be fair, I don't think these three necessarily play together. No, I take that completely back. I think they can. I think this works in a 4-3-3. Lavia at the base, Caicedo as a box-to-box, and Fernandez in there as well as a box-to-box. Maybe that sounds a little defensive, but as we saw at the weekend, Fernandez, exceptional passer wherever you put him. He's a bit better deeper down the pitch, but not too deep, as we found out last season. Yeah. And Caicedo at Brighton, he's going to come in, I'd say, and we'll touch on it a bit later, in your 4-2-3-1 and be more of a destroyer. But at Brighton, he was playing as like a box-to-box 8, and he's a fantastic passer, particularly in the final third. So these three could really be electric, I'd say, together. And I think the most promising thing is they're just so press resistant as well. Like they'll be able to keep hold of the ball so exceptionally well. And you saw this Manchester United v Wolves, right? Like in João Gomez, Tejas, Nunes, and Mario Lemina. Like what it can do, having three midfielders who are all just really good at like evading pressure and carrying it forward. In these three, like you'd be getting a similar thing. But again, as well, it's just the passing. Like everything about this is excellent. I'd say the only thing really would be, none of them are going to get breaking into the box and scoring goals. But as long as you're filling that further forward, doesn't necessarily matter. And I say, particularly Fernandez and Caicedo, both are well equipped to make the passes into the box to set those forwards up.
Exactly. Before I bring up a lineup sheet where we can talk about how we're going to implement all of these players, that is actually a thing that Chelsea fans have thought about. Why did we all of a sudden go for Lavia, who, yes, we weren't interested in last summer already, but we had the release clause of Tyler Adams activated. We were on the verge of getting Tyler Adams. We always wanted Caicedo. And then all of a sudden, we also got Lavia. Was it to piss Liverpool off because they pissed us off? I don't know. But we obviously also got Nkunku's injury. So people were now talking about, are we potentially having these three? Is there a chance that instead of a 4-2-3-1, because we don't have Nkunku and not a clear number 10 replacement for him, should we just play a 4-3-3 at least until Nkunku is back anyway? Would that be better because we have these three rather than having a Chukwuemeka at a 10 or pushing a Gallagher back into the 10 after he played as a single six for the first half an hour against Liverpool, which still baffles me how that's a thing. But anyway, what would you make? I mean, you just said they can do it, but do you think it's something that we should do, or do you think it's better if we have like Enzo Caicedo and then bring Lavia on sporadically as a rotational player? The problem is obviously with us not having Europe, if that's his role, how many minutes is he going to get this season?
Yeah, this is a manager issue, I think, or a manager topic, because, Pochettino at PSG, right? He ended up playing a 4-3-3, but I don't think he liked playing it at all. In fact, before Lionel Messi came in, he was adamant on a 4-2-3-1. He was playing Jorginho Wijnaldum as a number 10, and Messi comes in, means he can't do his 4-2-3-1, with Eminem up front. So he has to go to a 4-3-3 with quite an industrious midfield. And it never really clicked. So I think while...
Oh, really? I thought he played a 4-3-3 until Messi came and then played Messi as a 10 once Messi came. But I didn't really know. It's just...
No. Could play opposite. It's why Wijnaldum at PSG didn't work out at all. It was clearly a Poch signing. And the first couple fixtures of the 21-22 Ligue 1 campaign, It was a 4-2-3-1 with Wijnaldum at number 10 and I think Verratti and Pereira at defensive midfield. And then Messi came in and it switched to a 4-3-3. And that's why Wijnaldum left PSG, because in that 4-3-3, he was not going to work as one of the midfield three, particularly when you've got the front three who have such a lack of defensive work. And obviously he's not going to play in the front three either. So that's why his minutes just died off a cliff, and why he left for Roma, and why he struggled why he hasn't played for PSG since. So I think Pochettino will go to the 4-2-3-1 if he can, but I think this midfield three is something that a different manager would absolutely lap up personally.
Interesting.
I think they've got the nice complementing skill sets, and something else as well that's worth mentioning. It was mentioned on the Athletic Football Tactics podcast today. Definitely, if you've got no reason to shout on the Athletic me. They mentioned how Enzo Fernandez, I think in the game against Liverpool, he was responsible for something like 30% of your progressive passes. You can't be so reliant on one midfielder.
No.
And for your ball progression.
We have been for at least 6 months.
Yes, exactly. So having Caicedo in there is going to be like just such a nice relief. And in a 4-3-3, it means both of them can kind of do their thing on both sides of the pitch.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's see what Poch does, I guess. I mean, I didn't really expect him to play a mix of 3-back and 4-back with Livakovic as left-back and Chilwell as left-mid. I'll be honest, didn't see that coming either. So who knows what he's going to come out with. Something that, less so my idea, but something that someone in the chat said a couple of days ago. Having these three, could you play a 4-2-3-1 with a double pivot of Lavia and Caicedo and put Enzo in the 10? Because my response was, putting Enzo in the 10 is like putting Enzo in the 6. Yes, he can do it. but you're still not letting him be his best self because his best self is being in between both?
There was a pivot point in your game against Liverpool, which I watched in full and made quite a detailed analysis of just for my own notes because I'm a massive nerd. And the game changed for Chelsea after about 35 minutes. And the key change was Enzo Fernandez going from a ridiculously high position to deeper down the pitch alongside Gallagher. When that happened, you were suddenly much more in control of the game. Until then, Liverpool were dominating you. And I think there were still flaws with your system. Again, I'd say absolutely fine because you've been... and Kunku injuries kind of effed things up a bit. But yeah, if you play Enzo Fernandez as number 10, he's often going to be receiving the ball if he's back to goal. Now, the great thing about Enzo Fernandez is when he can see the goal, when he can see the play in front of him, he can pick out the passes and no one else can. So in the time he's taking the ball, receiving it and turning, then Liverpool or the opposition can reset the defence. So playing him in the number 10 is a bit of a waste of his abilities, and you're going to end up seeing his passes go backwards instead of forwards. And I think you'd honestly be better off putting Caicedo in the number 10. And even then, I think Pochettino might be tempted to do that, to be fair, from an out-of-position perspective, because Caicedo is really good at eating up the ground and defensive work, which means Chelsea's press can potentially be a bit more efficient. That's another thing of putting Enzo at number 10, right? He's less mobile than Caicedo. So if he's rounded in the press, then he's not going to be able to track back as quickly as Caicedo would. Exactly
that. And it's just, essentially that's what I was thinking as well. That's why when the chat made this up or came up with this idea, I was like, I don't think so. But hey, so I thought I'd mention it because maybe you had a different idea to me. I brought up what we think we're going to play for the most part, 4-2-3-1. Again, we didn't play a full-out simple 4-2-3-1 in the first game, but it was Liverpool. It was the first game of the season. So let's see what happens from now on. But presuming it is a 4-2-3-1, maybe I should... Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be Enzo or Caicedo on the left. I'm not 100% sure because Enzo was more on the right until now, but I feel like Caicedo is more on the right usually. So I feel like it's more likely that Enzo goes to the left rather than Caicedo, but I don't know. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, does it? But how do you think, especially compared to, like I said, what I touched on earlier, having Jorginho, but then also having Kovacic, Kante, and having to play Enzo as the deepest part of a midfield, sometimes a midfield 3 or more stuff than a midfield 3 towards the end, especially when Lampard was here. How do you think we're transformed by having Caicedo? Because our defense is pretty good. Now we have a pretty good midfield, a very good midfield. It's a question of what's ahead of them. But what do you think these two allow us to do further up the pitch? Or how do you think they allow us to play? Sorry.
Well, it's going to change the dynamic completely from last season. We've got Caicedo on the pitch there. If you just put some other dot next to Enzo Fernandez very briefly, I can explain what was happening last season. So Enzo Fernandez started the majority of his games alongside Mateo Kovacic and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I added this all up in Chelsea's games from when he joined, right? And the thing is, neither Kovacic or Loftus-Cheek were defensively aware enough, or defensively productive enough, let's say. They're not defensive midfielders. We all know this, right? So when Enzo Fernandez goes forward, he can, only potentially go as far as, let's say, the edge of the centre circle, right? Because let's say he's got the defensive guy next to him. He knows he can't overcommit. You can't leave Ruben Loftus-Cheek as your sole rest defence, right? And likewise, if he is, the deepest midfielder, if the other guy is going further forward, then you're keeping him further away from your own goal. And Enzo Fernandez, your most dangerous passer. Why would you want him further away from the opposition's goal? By having Caicedo in now next to Enzo Fernandez, this changes things absolutely completely, right? Because Caicedo, one of the best defensive presences in the league, not just at when the team's out of possession and sitting back and making interceptions, but also in the press. He's really mobile, very defensively aware. It gives Enzo Fernandez the confidence to push forward, and it will let Chelsea play a little bit like a lopsided 4-3-3 in a sense. Enzo Fernandez pushing a lot further past the centre circle. Number 10 will be pushing further as well, up to the striker. And it's because Caicedo can be trusted to cover that space behind him, right? And it's not just that as well. If the opposition win the ball, Chelsea's team will jump forward. Caicedo is equally adept at jumping forward to whereabout Enzo Fernandez is as well, because, as we said, he's great in the press. So it helps Chelsea in two senses there. Enzo Fernandez gets to push forward, and Chelsea are able to win the ball higher up the pitch too. It's a match made in heaven. There's a reason why people are already saying this is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. Like, you have gone from one of the most weakest ones in a sense of system and like functionality to, I think you're better than Liverpool. I think you're much better than Manchester United's midfield at the moment. I think you're on par with Arsenal and Manchester City. You're in the best place possible.
There you go. And also, obviously, what you need to add into that as well is Enzo is 22, Caicedo is 21, Lavia is 19. You have Andrey Santos behind that as well. Let's see what happens with him. Does he stay? Does he leave on loan? Whatever happens. Do you at all see it that it could also be a bit like, like you touched on, at Brighton, Caicedo acted more as a box-to-box player rather than as the sitter, the pure sitter? Could it also be that more often than not, Enzo goes and Caicedo stays, but every now and again, once Caicedo goes on a bit of a run, Enzo will also drop deep just to, fill the role for the time being. Do you see that happening too? Or do you think it will be very, adamantly always Caicedo?
Well, I think Poch likes a bit of fluidity in his team. So I think that is possible to see. Maybe something we'll see is, I don't think Pochettino's adapted his tactics in quite a while, but we're seeing a lot of people in the Premier League, a lot of teams do a box midfield. So perhaps we see something like that. So Chilwell, as we saw at the weekend, came inside.
Starting from left back or starting from midfield?
Starting from left back, we'd bring Chilwell into midfield where Enzo Fernandez is, so around that area. And Enzo Fernandez would be able to push forward. Yeah. And then whoever's at number 10.
Or more off the left?
More off the left. And then whoever's number 10, obviously Nkunku's injured at the moment, so maybe that's a Chukwuemeka.
You do one of these kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd be one of those kind of things, exactly like that. And what this does, the reason...
And where do the left and right wing go then? Do they stay there?
They would stay very wide, yeah.
And where does the right back go then? Or do you then use the right back to build in a 3?
Use the right back to build in a 3. So maybe it would be Chilwell dropping in or Gusto dropping in. But either way, I think what you'd see with this is Enzo Fernandez still pushing forward. And the benefit here would be, if you have someone alongside Caicedo, it gives him the license now, a bit like how he gives... Yeah, to also push forward. It's what Tottenham did really well at the weekend with Emerson Royale alongside Bissouma. Emerson would occasionally push forward into the box while Bissouma hung back. And the reason teams would do this, the reason Chelsea might do this is, let's say the opposition do win the ball, it gives you a good rest defence, players who are in defensive positions out of possession, and it also gives your team a bit more freedom. It gives Enzo a lot more freedom as well, complete freedom pretty much, to drop wherever he wants in possession.
Exactly. It's very interesting. I'm very excited for it. Like the first game, because we didn't have our midfield and our signings done, I was looking forward to it. But now that we have Caicedo, but also that we have Lavia, I just can't wait for Sunday. Now, obviously, that Reece James got injured made me a little bit less excited, I will be honest. But still, this is exciting. Now, let's pretend for a minute we will play a 4-2-3-1, or we may play a 4-2-3-1, and we have as the deepest, let me just make sure I get the right one. Where is it? That one.
There he is, Lavia.
Exactly, that being Lavia. How do you think it would work then? Would it be I don't want to say the way they play, but I always remember me being young and was when I first started understanding football tactics, the big thing at the time was Barcelona's 4-3-3, where they always had Busquets at the base, Xavi off the right, Iniesta off the left. And Iniesta was always much higher than Xavi. So it was not like this. It was kind of like this. Even Barca's base formation like FIFA was not them on the same level, while your base 4-3-3 was the 2 8s next to each other. Would it be a bit like this, or do you see it, if we did a 4-2-3-1, we would have 2 equally as attacking aids?
So this is where the value of Caicedo really comes in, because as we mentioned, right, not only was he one of Brighton's best players defensively, but also offensively. You go on any comps of him, not his defensive work, but his attacking work. And he's very good in the final third. And remember what we said about Enzo Fernandez? Don't want to put him too high, because we want to make sure he can face the goal, play his passes. If you're playing a midfield like this, before we move the players, it's worth remembering Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo Fernandez, maybe less so Enzo, are all equally adept at pressing. They're all very good at winning the ball back, particularly Caicedo and Lavia. Very aggressive, very quick to close down in the press. So if you're playing a 4-3-3, I actually think you'd see Caicedo push a bit further forward. And
because he's almost more mobile, and Enzo is the kind of dictator that needs to have a bit of space in front of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in a sense. I think Caicedo is also a very good passer, but I think he's a decent ball carrier as well, whereas Enzo much more swinging to passing, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And you can afford to play Caicedo in an advanced role, because he will be helpful in the final third. But if Chelsea lose the ball, he can very quickly counter press, and he's the most advanced midfielder now. So he can be someone who leads Chelsea's
This
press.
is essentially how Sarri used Kante back when he
that's a very good example. Yeah. So. I think Caicedo and Kante are kind of the decent comparisons to make there, in the sense of they're not just defensive midfielders. They often get misprofiled as that, but I think Kante's probably one of the best ball winners of all time. But Caicedo, I think you'll find will be a lot more better passer, a lot more comfortable in the final third, particularly than latter Kante is.
Yeah, there you go. Is there at all, if we say we did play this as a midfield three, is there at all potential that it could be like this, or are you very adamant that if you played all three, Lavia is the 6 and Caicedo one of the 8s?
Yeah, Lavia definitely a 6, particularly as he's the tallest, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the most physical.
I think so.
Again, we're saying Chelsea want to press the opposition. Definitely a Pochettino thing, right? One way the opposition can beat you is by going long. And by going long, you want to make sure you have your most physical players back to win those aerial duels. Sounds like a simple thing, but it's something that, again, bring up Man United against Wolves on Monday night. Something they struggled with. And there was a good video on Tifo about this. Again, got definitely no relation. Man United couldn't go long over over Wolves' press because they had Mason Mount. He's a fun guy. They had Marcus Rashford up front. They had Anthony and Garnacho on the wings, and all of those guys are very small, so they're not going to be able to, win headers against Wolves defenders. So effectively, always force United to playing on the floor, right? With Chelsea having Lavia at the base, you're kind of doing the same thing to opposition teams, unless they're, they have a really physical striker up front like an Antonio. Like, they might be more tempted to fancy beating you on the ground in the press. And if Chelsea are well prepared, then they're more likely to consistently win the ball back. Whereas if you play Caicedo at the base and Lavia, then teams are perhaps a lot more likely to go, you know what, we'll take Caicedo in the air, let's lob it over the press, and then let's just try and attack him from there.
There you go. Very interesting. Now, a couple of other questions about some of the other signings that Chelsea have made, because that's what we might as well have it up like this. Might as well add them. I'll be honest, I'd not even sure I'd ever heard of Nicolas Jackson before we were linked with him. But to be honest, throughout preseason, even in the first game, even though he missed the sitter, he's kind of, maybe not as much as Caicedo and Lavia and Enzo will be, but he's kind of been a bit of a revelation to our forward play, especially compared to what we've had to deal with over the last 2 years. A Lukaku that didn't try, a Havertz who isn't a striker, and Aubameyang. Compared to all of those, Jackson has looked like prime Cristiano Ronaldo, I won't lie. What do you think of Nicolas Jackson?
I'm happy to say I'm very surprised by how well he's done. He was on my list of players to watch last season, and I watched quite a bit of him. Probably not as much as like some of the Chelsea fans have like before he arrived, but like I was like, yeah, seems like a good signing. Seems like a high potential player, but I didn't consider him as the highest potential player in La Liga. But
did you watch him towards the end of the season when he had this crazy month where what did he score, like 9 goals in a month or whatever he scored? Or did you watch him before he seemed to like explode?
Yeah, before that, I'd say, to be fair. So maybe I didn't get. Maybe he has been like this for the last few months, but
I couldn't tell you, mate.
Maybe this is what I'm thinking about as well. Like, especially when you talk about previous Chelsea strikers, maybe this is an example of how well a Chelsea striker can do when they don't have the pressure labelled on them. Like, every player you signed has always been, oh, can they beat the Chelsea number 9 curse? And
I'm so glad we didn't give him the number 9, man.
Yeah, Lukaku.
Although when he missed that big chance against Liverpool, I thought, oh, there it is. The striker goes back.
Is that Lukaku, Morata, Werner, as you said, Havertz as well? They've all failed with like very.
I mean, you can say Torres. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, you're going way back.
Yeah, you're going to go.
Drogba and Diego Costa.
Hernan Crespo, if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. So Jackson's probably the one who's arrived with the lowest expectations and has been the most comfortable.
Exactly. I mean, Diego Costa obviously arrived for a similar fee, but that was at a different time. And still, Diego Costa was in the Champions League final. So he still had the pressure, but he was kind of the only ones out of the Drogba to actually succeed. Yeah, I've been impressed by a lot about Jackson. Like, I'm sure, obviously you watched the game. So that Mudryk chance late on was obviously started by Jackson running basically the length of the pitch in the 93rd minute with Konate, I think it was, like in his back, where I'm like, to have the strength, the pace, and the stamina in the 93rd minute to make that run. What more can I really ask for? He seems strong. He seems to have capable touch. He seems to be able to dribble. In pre-season, he looked very clinical. Obviously, in that first game against Liverpool, not as much. But I think if we start to provide, because that's what sometimes annoys me about Chelsea fans. We come out of this Liverpool game and we're like, we were amazing. We should have scored 17,000 goals. I'm like, well, but no, because we don't have Haaland and Harry Kane. You can't just expect every half chance to be a goal. We had like 3 chances realistically that should or could have been a goal, not 15. 3, right? And Liverpool also had 3 of the exact same level of chances. So that's the one thing that we still have to wait and see. Is he going to be clinical enough to do that? But hey, so far he's been good. Let's see what Armando Broja does when he's back from injury as well, I suppose. And apparently we're still looking at a striker potentially to bring in. I don't think like the big name to replace Jackson. I think it's going to be more for the numbers, potentially someone slightly more experienced. If I ask you, experienced striker to help as a potential backup, I will say, is there a name that comes to your mind where you're like, get him?
Oh God, my first one was
a difficult question, I know. Yeah, it literally Giroud. I'm like, exactly what Giroud was when we signed him from Arsenal. That's what I want to get.
Yeah, I think you need to go for a different profile to Jackson. So maybe that's someone, like, honestly, like Giroud, like someone really experienced, someone who's good at hold-up play.
Basically Mitrovic, but Fulham ask way too much money.
I honestly wouldn't have been opposed to the Vlahovic-Lukaku swap. Vlahovic has got a lot of stick, but he's been in a really the Juventus team scores goals, but to the detriment of his success. But again, he's kind of a similar-ish profile to Jackson. They wouldn't have brought like too many different qualities.
What about someone like Taremi from Porto?
Nah. He'd be a clinical finisher, but he kind of has Falcao vibes written all over him in a sense. So,
fair.
Yeah, I don't think he would have brought too much. He's very much a finisher in that system. I struggle to think of any real big names that you could bring. Any big names, any big strikers you could bring in. There's a bit of a dearth in the market, really. Some people saying Mitrovic, he's off to Saudi. He would have been good. Yeah,
he would have been good. He really would. But yeah, I mean, one last question I have for you, and I will take this off the screen before I need to let you go. Chelsea, obviously, we signed Sanchez. I'll ask you about him. But also, we've let Kepa go now on loan without an obligation or option. So he's just going to come back next year. But we need a number 2. Apparently, we've set a rough budget of £20 million for the backup goalkeeper. Is there a goalkeeper that could be a backup for Chelsea in the region of this £20 million budget that you would be like, that would be a good shout? Or is that also a bit of like, obviously it's not always easy to straight away think of goalies that are backups, because otherwise they wouldn't be backups. But still, is there anyone that comes to mind? Like, obviously there's been a few rumors with like Mamardashvili from Valencia. Would he fall into that budget? I don't know. I think we should consider someone like older, but is Navas still good enough? Also, he has 1 year left in his contract, so our Forest, they're not going to loan him. Are they going to sell him, really? Now, this late in the window? I don't know. What do you think in terms of goalie?
I do have a name, actually. I think you're right. Someone like Mamardashvili would be too expensive at the moment. So you'd need 20 million. Definitely not enough in this market for top quality keeper. Echo, stop. I thought I muted my Alexa there. 20 million wouldn't be ordinarily good, thanks to you guys. But I think there's a bit of fortune in that. Albon Lafont was looking to join a series of series of teams across Europe, and he got injured at the weekend. Not a muscle injury. He's involved in the collision, fractured rib, and contusion of the lungs.
I swear they will keep him out for a hot minute, though.
Yeah, it says several weeks online. So not super long. And it's again, that's not an injury. It's it's not a Reece James injury. He shouldn't fracture his rib every couple of months.
No,
and he's still one of the top up and coming young keepers in Europe. He's just the only thing he needs to work on is with the ball at his feet. But that's not necessarily like he's been bad at that. It's just he's played for a non-team that's a bit like the French Crystal Palace, the French Holstein Crystal Palace. So he's not been trained to do that, but he's still really young. I think he's 23.
But would that be a smart acquisition considering we currently don't really have a backup goalkeeper? Because Bettinelli, our third goalkeeper, he's also injured. And then our kind of young goalkeeper we have is Bergström, who has played in pre-season, but I have no idea really if he's any good or not. He seems massive, so that's one thing. I guess that's different to Kepa. But I mean, someone linked us to like Kasper Schmeichel. That was very quickly by the Athletic said to not be true. But I'm like, excuse me, he wasn't even. Leicester picked Danny Ward over Kasper Schmeichel. We can absolutely not entertain Kasper Schmeichel, for the love of God, please.
I'm with you. I tell you, it is a gamble. Like, you are gambling on Sanchez not getting injured. While Lafont is injured. So, that does make it difficult. But in a long-term sort of mindset, I think that'd be smart business. Like, you picking up a player who you could easily resell for 20 mil, like would have good resale value going forward, is still promising. Like, if he fulfilled his potential, he could be like a 50, 60 million keeper, right? It's just, that short-term gamble. Personally, I'd say if it was me, I'd really heavily consider it.
Fair dues. Just quickly, as the last question, Robert Santos, he's now changed his number from the 31 that he had for a week until Kepa left to the number 1. He is now our number 1. What do you think of Robert Sanchez? I know you're probably more of an expert on outfielders than you are on goalies, but what are your thoughts on him? Because I think he's about as good as Kepa in the grand scheme of things. A few different strengths, a few different weaknesses. But is he really that much better? I don't know. But what do you think?
I think it depends on your answer of how good Kepa is. I'd say Kepa actually had quietly a decent season last year.
I completely agree. Yeah. Not even quietly, but Chelsea fans just hate him. So,
it's nice to be alongside someone who's on my same wavelength there. I think this is a fine sign. I don't think it's too bad. I don't think it's too great. He's not like an Alisson level goalkeeper. There's been good bits written on him. He was dropped at Brighton, I think, for he was dropped for Jason Steele because Steele was really good with the ball, like with his passing. But then he did throw a hissy fit, which probably kept Sanchez out. That's made it
number 3 then,
which was.
But he was still dropped for footballing reasons and only became number 3 for off-pitch reasons. And I think Chelsea fans like to forget that at the moment a little bit. They're like, it's only off-pitch issues that made him not play anymore. I'm like, no, that's not true. And also, people try to tell me Sanchez is so much better with his feet than Kepa is. I'm like, the reason we signed Kepa in 2019 was because he's supposedly good with, or 2018, supposedly good with his feet. And if he's not good anymore now, then we made him worse because he sure was good when he first turned up here. So like, how can Brighton drop Sanchez because the other goalie is better with his feet? But then people tell me Sanchez is better than Kepa with his feet when we signed Kepa for 70 million because he was good with his feet. I don't understand.
Yeah, Sanchez's strength's definitely aligned with shot stopping rather than with his passing, work under pressure. But again, I think that's more of a coachable trait than becoming a top quality shot stopping goalkeeper.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
but,
so I think
he's clearly not bad at passing. He has the confidence and everything. But I mean, in his first game, he passed it straight to Liverpool and nearly cost us a goal. So what's that to say?
Yeah, but that was. Again, not to sever my newly rebuilt ties with Chelsea fans, I don't think, again, missed game circumstances, I don't think you were great against Liverpool in possession or out of possession for at least the first half.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put that at his door. I think
no, but that mistake was in the second half though.
Fair, but I guess if you have the confidence to do it, then that is what you need. Like you De Gea, right? Great example of a goalkeeper who's got zero confidence with the ball at his feet, and that's what makes him shocking. Because at United, every time he got the ball, he pumped it long or shot past it.
Especially punts it long to Rashford.
Yeah, there's a great story of Ange Postecoglou before his time at Spurs. I think before his time at Celtic, one player he was managing made a mistake. Like a defender passed it to the opposition under press, and we're tempted to say, that defender, he can't do this. And Postecoglou ranted in the dressing room at every other player other than the defender for not giving him a passing option, and praised the defender for having the confidence to do it, and was like, this is all you need to get better. So I would apply that sort of same logic to Robert Sanchez and be like, as long as you've got the confidence to try it and the work ethic to keep improving, I think that's only a path to keep becoming a better goalkeeper. I think it'd be more of a worry if it was more of a mental block, and he was just never going to be a guy who was able to play these long-range passes.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly decent with the ball at his feet, but is he better than Kepa? That's what I disagree with. And I agree with JC's comment here. He's tall, can claim cross balls, which that is a significant upgrade on Kepa. He will also concede less long shots. But otherwise, is he going to be much better? I don't think so. But I guess that was the unfortunate case that interest for Kepa only seemed to turn up after we signed Sanchez. I'm sure if that turned up first, we would have signed a bigger name, a more expensive goalkeeper, arguably a better goalkeeper than Sanchez. Maybe would have tried harder to get someone like Menyo. Who knows? But Alex, I know you need to go because you have other commitments. I've kept you longer than I should have done already anyway. So we appreciate your time massively. I will just do my outro after you're done so everything can be done quicker. Everybody check out Alex. His TikTok, his Twitter, and his YouTube are all linked down in the description. Please check him out, as well as obviously his work with The Athletic and Tifo. Alex, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you very much. And hopefully I'll have to bring you on again at the end of the transfer window because we've signed another 17 great players.
How about I'm doing an article for Pys's website, London's First, where I'm rating every Chelsea transfer. Maybe we'll do a stream where I'll come on and explain why I rated every Chelsea transfer out of 10, whatever it was.
But as long as you do that on deadline day, because you never know with Chelsea how many signings we will do that day.
I'll probably be dead on deadline day from the amount of work I'll be given. But after that, we'll do it.
Exactly. We will do that. Alex, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
See you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll just round this out quickly myself. If you have a couple of questions, if you want to throw in a couple of super chats, please do. But yeah, thank you for Alex to Alex for coming on. I thought he explained it very well in terms of what Caicedo with Enzo, what Caicedo potentially with Lavia and Enzo can bring, and how our midfield has just completely revolutionized itself compared to 7 months ago. And that is wonderful. I still need to see what exactly we're going to do with our attack, because obviously Olise is not happening. We may be interested in what's his face, Barcola, who is not as good as Cherki in Alex's opinion. He's also not as good as Olise in Alex's opinion, but will cost more than Olise would have done with that release goals. So how happy am I about that? Not very. I will be perfectly honest. But obviously the problem is that we have Nkunku. We just need to wait for him to come back. So it's like, how much do you want to spend in that position? Obviously, a backup right winger is a different scenario. But yeah, we at the moment, Madueke isn't even fit. Well, he's back fit, but not ready to play yet. So it's a difficult one. JC asks, can you explain exactly why Olise deal did not go through? Well, we don't know for sure is the problem. I unfortunately closed the tweet already now because I didn't expect to be talking about it again. But it seems to have been that Crystal Palace threatened to take us to a tribunal over approaching the player without their consent. Because if you are not aware, ladies and gentlemen, I have this in front of my face. Let me try to get something up on screen so this doesn't cover my face anymore. Where is it? It was a Fabrizio thing. There you go. I will bring it just back up again so we can just talk about it one more time. So, if you don't know, by footballing rules, it is not... Can I do it like this? Kind of. Not really. Not great, is it? How about like this? Also not great, is it? I think we'll go back to this one. If you didn't know, the rules of football, I'm not sure if it's FIFA, UEFA, Premier League, whatever, whoever sets exactly the rules. You're not allowed to approach a player without the consent of their club unless they have less than 6 months left on their contract. And clearly, Palace weren't happy with that. I don't know why they weren't so happy with it, because it's as much as the rules say you aren't allowed to do that, kind of everyone does it, whether that's us, Man City, Man United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, everyone does this. So, and no one really complains about it. So I'm not really sure what Palace's problem was, because obviously we've had quite a good relationship with them over the last few years. They had Ruben Loftus-Cheek have a great loan with them. They had Conor Gallagher have a great loan with them. We sold them Marc Cucurella from us. So like we had a really good relationship with them. So I don't really understand where this has come from. Obviously, to add on to that, Lewis Hall had a pre-agreement signed with Crystal Palace to join them on loan, but then something made that deal be held up, and now Lewis Hall is instead going on a loan with obligation to buy, so essentially a permanent move to Newcastle, it looks like. Not on loan to Hall. I mean, Jester says here it's because we pulled Hall from them, but why did we pull Hall from them? My theory earlier was maybe because Chalobah got injured. Maybe that happened 2 days ago, and oh shit, now we can't sell Chalobah to balance the books, so then we need to sell Lewis Hall instead, because Poch seems to like Gallagher. So what about that? Obviously, we still could have saved the money from Ugochukwu, but with the amortization, that isn't the same amount of money anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. But Palace just upset. But if we didn't do anything wrong, we wouldn't be scared of this tribunal. So if we didn't do anything wrong, then we wouldn't have had to pull out. Do you know what I mean? I'm personally, I will be perfectly honest, guys. I don't know what actually are the penalties for if you, or the penalties, the punishment for if you break this rule. Like, would we be charged a fee? Would we, what would happen? I don't know. But the fact that we pulled out over this thread tells me something must have been wrong. Because otherwise, the other options that we have are not as good as Olise, especially if they don't have a release clause of £35 million. So, yeah, to me, it's a bit simple. What's your take on Brennan Johnson? I'm not sold. I'm not sold. I just spoke to Alex about it as well. He isn't sold either. Tempest Infinite Athlete Data. I don't care, really. I don't care. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, like Santiago says, another win Stanley Howler by the looks of things. Then again, everyone kind of does it. So is it a howler and just Palace playing bad? I don't know. We will never know the details of this, I assume. JC says, if we don't sell Gallagher, then I don't see why we bought Lesley Ugochukwu. Bro, I don't see why we bought Lesley Ugochukwu, even if we sell Gallagher, just because we bought Lavia. Like, what's the point? I personally don't really get it. Adash sent a super chat. My day. Sorry, I missed your question. Check my question about midfielders I sent earlier. But what did you send earlier, bro? How can I find it now? How about you ask it again? Now I just look and you ask me the question again, obviously without a super chat. And now I'll pay attention to it. And I will bring it up then. For fuck's sake, any update on Reece? No, at the moment, no. We just know he's injured, hamstring injury. Obviously, Sam, the United fan guy that always had the early team news last season, he said it could be months. But I think that was more speculation than anything else because I think he said that before the scan ever took place. So yeah, that's what I'm saying on that. But yeah, I'll give Adash a minute to come up with his question and then I'll answer that. And then I'll leave this stream at this one because I just wanted to let Alex go because he had other commitments at 8 o'clock UK time and I held him a couple of minutes longer than I should have done. Anyway, because we started a bit late because of him, to be fair, we will gloss past that. Ladies and gentlemen, one last time, please do subscribe if you haven't already, mind you. Over 230 if you're watching. I appreciate it very, very much. Subscribe if you haven't done that just yet. Hit that like button for me. How many likes are we on? We are on 74 likes, so we need to get to at least 100, ideally 150. Every one of you, right now, please go down below, hit that like button for me. It's just one click of a button that doesn't cost you a single penny and barely any time, and you'd really help me out in spreading these streams out to more people. So I massively appreciate that. Adash says, the question is, what's going to be the long-term vision for the likes of Andrey, Casadei, Lesley, etc.? Are they only fodder to be sold, or can they have a future along with Lavia, Enzo, Caicedo, etc.? This is a good question, Adash, and I don't know the answer to it. I think one of Andrey, Casadei, and Lesley can have a future here, because obviously you need four. Essentially, even if you play a double pivot, let alone if we ever switch to a 4-3-3 more permanently. But the most likely, Casadei, Ugochukwu, in my opinion, because it seems like Andrey Santos is the most talented of these lot. Those guys will probably be sent on loan for a couple of years and then maybe sold for profit, which I understand because you need to obviously balance the books and, you know, it's a way of doing things. Essentially, Chelsea have done that always, right? Like, yeah, we've often done it with our own academy players rather than signing them. But Andreas Christensen was essentially that. Obviously, we didn't sell him after his 2 years on loan at Borussia Mönchengladbach, but essentially that's what happened with him. He was just then good and we kept it. He said Chukwuemeka as well, sorry. Forgot to mention him. I mean, he's a bit more attacking than these other ones you mentioned, I guess. But yeah, he absolutely, the same applies to him as well. So it's a very, very difficult one. No freeloading frauds, like Ricky says. Hit the like button. Exactly that. Subscribe and hit the like button right now. Qdis is right there and I bought one Johnson. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with Qdis either. Someone said Johnson is a smoke screen. Could be. YT Hamada says loan for 2 years and at the end 1 stays and 2 sold, in my opinion. Yeah, something like that. Maybe even longer than 2 years. It could be unknown, especially Ugochukwu and Santo, obviously 18 and 19. We could keep that for a bit longer. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, you never know what else will happen in terms of Caicedo, in terms of Enzo, like in an ideal world, and we've tied them down on seriously long contracts, but you never know. Real Madrid could come knocking with a £200 million offer for Enzo Fernandez in 4 years. Maybe we'll then have to let him go. Maybe he will then, you know, as so many of these South American players do, it was always my dream to play for Real Madrid, right? That could happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but it could happen. So then maybe we have someone ready to replace him already. But realistically, if we sold Enzo ever for crazy, stupid money, realistically, would we just replace him with someone that we already have? Or would we spend a lot of money and buy a big replacement? That's what we would do. So I completely agree with you, Adash. I don't really see the point. But like Melinda says, like. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because we will finish this stream off here. I appreciate you all very, very much for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.